The current attack that they're under is this political warfare attack, which you've talked about a lot on the show. So the things like the casinos, that's not economics. I mean, part of it is economics, but a big part of it is also money laundering, infiltration of their political system, emplacement of strategic assets, dual use facilities. I mentioned that Tinian, which is the neighboring island of Saipan, that island was the island that had the busiest airport in the end of the war, because that's where the B-29s were taking off from to bomb Japan, and in fact, that's where the Enola Gay took off from. And the runways are still there, and those runways are what's being rehabilitated now. And this new little Chinese casino that's been put in is right on the harbor, right where the U.S. is going to be bringing in building supplies to work on the rest of the island. And this island is the linkage to the U.S. is very difficult to describe how deep it is. It's shaped when the Seabees first arrived. They said, "You know what? It looks like Manhattan. It's kind of shaped like Manhattan." So they named all the streets as if they were in Manhattan. So there's a Broadway, there's a Central Park, there is today. That's how it's laid out. And the new hotel that's associated with this little casino, which is on a bluff overlooking the harbor, which is exactly where you'd want to be if you're going to be monitoring that kind of activity, was when I went there and saw it, I took a picture of the Chinese writing that gave the name of it and sent it to a friend who can read that. And apparently the name is the Chinese equivalent of the name of Chulu Beach, which is White Beach, which is where the Marines first came into attack on Tinian. So the idea that this is a beachhead, where the political warfare attack is coming from, is implicit in the name of the hotel linked to the casino that they're building on Tinian, where $400 million worth of Air Force infrastructure is going in.
Wow. This is insane, and it's also just shows, like, you on the fringes of American media, you'll get the stories about Chinese crossing the U.S. southern border, but
also I think the problem is that, like, it becomes hard to, like, figure out what's really happening on the southern border, because it's like if you see things on Twitter, for example, like, there's like no way to, like, confirm exactly what's going on. So it's easy for about half the country to be like, okay, this is just some, like, xenophobic scare. It's not really happening. Whereas, like, when you try to, like, dig down into what's actually happening, it becomes very difficult to understand what the truth of the matter is. Like, are these all, Chinese soldiers coming across the border? Obviously not. But is there some kind of national security danger that could still be happening from all of these illegal crossings? Like,
you're talking about the southern border still.
Yes. Yeah, that's not so easily dismissed. But, like, I think your point was that this stuff doesn't get talked about even in the fringes, right?
Yeah, and, like, this is very important because this is U.S. territory. This would be a critical place where any kind of war for Taiwan would happen. I mean, the Chinese military has talked about how to strike Guam, and it just amazes me, like, how Chinese casinos worldwide are just these hubs of Chinese influence operations, human trafficking, drug.
Like imagine a U.S. company trying to set up a casino or something else on Hainan Island in China, which is Hainan, of course, has a lot of military infrastructure for the People's Liberation Army. Right. So, like, it would be the equivalent of that. But obviously the CCP would never in a million years allow something like that.
Yeah, because it's insane. Yeah.
That's what separates China from the U.S. We're insane.
Well, I mean, I think that, like, even though, for example, I think a lot of Americans don't even know that this place is American, right?
They don't know the history of World War II.
Or, I mean, even when we first started about like a decade ago talking about these Chinese casinos in Saipan, I didn't really know where
I was like,
Saipan
where is
was.
Saipan?
Yeah, like I didn't understand like that it was actually U.S. territory. It just sounds like another of the many islands in the South Pacific, which are small nations or whatever. So, yeah, I think that there is also a lot of obliviousness, I guess, to what is actually going on in that area.
The poor people of Saipan. So we've interviewed the governor and had some events with the people who run the college, things like that, and when they go to Washington, often they have to spend the first sort of 5-10 minutes explaining they're part of the United States, that they're, and one of the guys was saying, yeah, usually we end up just going, yeah, we're near Hawaii. They're nowhere near Hawaii. They're much closer to Taiwan than they are to Hawaii. I mean, and they share a border with Japan. And
they're the most western part of the country.
Eastern.
Yeah. And when I went there the last time, the cheapest way to get there was to fly to Korea and then take one of the cheap charter tourist flights from Korea. So they are,
wow.
yeah, they're currently their top tourist market, over, I think it's over 50% now, is Korean package holiday. Well, Korean holidays, family holidays. It's about a 4-hour flight from Seoul.
I can see why you were recommending Americans travel there. You're working for the Saipan Board of Tourism, aren't you?
Well,
that's what this is about.
So leave your comment below if you'd like to visit Saipan or Tinian, but will only do so once they fix their visa requirement for Chinese tourists.
Oh no, then you're punishing the people of CNMI. If they can say to the to Homeland or whoever, look, we've got so many American tourists, we don't need these Chinese tourists. But I can tell you what you can do. You can leave a comment below to United Airlines to say, drop your crazy, insane prices to get to CNMI. Because they've got this kind of lock on the market that makes it much more expensive than it should be. Although you can use points to get there.
Let's try to find another airline that's willing to do that, and then you have market competition. That'll drive the prices back to normal.
Spirit.
Yeah.
No, please, anyone but Spirit. But if you're watching Delta,
if it's in the western part of the U.S., maybe we can get Southwest
Alaska
interested.
You're right. Can't do that if it's the eastern part of the U.S., can you, Matt?
How about a different airline?
But this raises sort of actually some interesting issues, which is one of the problems that they have, and that it's such an unusual part of the U.S. that it gets these odd little things like this immigration crazy loophole, but there's a big downside to it. So, for example, they had a very big typhoon, and it destroyed a lot of their college campus, and FEMA wanted to rebuild it, but they used a pricing that would be as if you can kind of go to the hardware store in Milwaukee and go and pick up stuff there. But they're at the end of such a long supply chain that things are way more expensive. So it took a lot more money and a lot more time to get their campus rebuilt. But similarly on tourism, what they would like to do is build up the Japanese market. And Japan is apparently sort of interested, but just going to Saipan and back wouldn't make as much sense as if Japan Airlines could go to Saipan and then go to Guam and then come back from there. But that Saipan Guam leg is a domestic US flight. And there are regulations around international airlines being able to fly domestic routes. So, yeah. So once you start kind of looking at just the little things that are holding back major alternatives to this PRC political warfare attack, you can see that very small changes, like giving an exemption to Japan Airlines to be able to do that leg, would actually be kind of transformational, make a big difference. So this United Airlines thing, if we end up talking about anywhere else in the Pacific, they're also a big problem for reaching the U.S. freely associated states of Marshall Islands, Federated States of Micronesia, and Palau, because they control or have exclusivity largely on those routes as well. And the prices, again, are very high. So, what it takes is you put in, the U.S. is putting in $400 million for airfield in Tinian and another similar amount in Yap, but that's kind of the kinetic warfare front. But there's very little, if no, defense on the political warfare front. And that's where the PRC is just romping it.